You are listening to the MSPoweruser podcast. This is episode 42, recorded Thursday, April 6th. Each week on this show, we discuss the latest news about Microsoft. Today, we're going to dig into Windows Creators Update, the Xbox Scorpio, which is big news today, and of course, the Cerulean Moment. My name is Vernon E.L. Smith, and I'm joined, as usual, by Andy Bennett. What's up, bud?
Hey, so there's a lot of stuff that's been going down, and I told most of it to you already, but I'm dealing with a cold, so pardon me if there's any coughs in the background at one point or another. And there's I'm trying to get all the rest of the stuff together, but this has been a big week, including the fact that I've had to renounce my war on Twitter, and it's been a decisive victory in that battle for them, as generally when you know a lot of people from one social network and not everyone's going to move to a new social network, it gets a little tough to stay out. So alas, we have lost that battle, but presumably I'll win the war because Twitter stock isn't looking too hot right now.
Yeah, I saw that. That was kind of interesting. Here, weather's been fine. I only bring that up because weather has not been fine for you. What do you have today, Andy?
Oh yeah, we have snow, which looking at the calendar here, and it says that it's April, which seems a little off because it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas outside.
It's odd. That's funny. Interesting. All right, let's jump right into, with no longer insider stuff necessarily. We're going right to the creators update. It's now available through the Update Assistant. There's just a couple lines here. Basically, rollout begins April 11th. Of course, we reported on that last week. And, of course, you can download the Upgrade Assistant.
Update Assistant. I mean, they keep flip-flopping on the name. It's Upgrade or Update. They don't know, and I don't know. But
I would say that this would be an upgrade because it is a full new version, where an update is more like Patch Tuesday.
Yeah. Whatever, though. And, this will let you upgrade on your own terms. The Creators Update is going to roll out in waves, so even on April 11th, your PC might not necessarily get it. And so this lets you get it whenever you want, even today, before the rollout starts. You just go to the site. We've got a link in the article where you can download it. You can download that, run it on your computer that's running the anniversary update, and upgrade to Creators Update quick, painlessly. It'll go nice and easy.
Yeah, I really haven't heard any big cautionary tales, basically.
I mean, there really isn't any. I mean, this is just like if you know how people used to use the media creation tool to upgrade a computer to Windows 10 from Windows 7 or 8, this is essentially the same thing in a different package. I mean, it's the same concept. You download this executable, run it, and upgrade your computer to Windows 10. That's just about it. Although, in terms of functionality, interestingly enough, this is essentially a reused version of the Get Windows 10 app, which is brought back for a new generation. So that's kind of funny. Actually, I think we did maybe talk about this. Last week we talked about how it would be available on April 5th, and I mentioned that I tried it with a leaked version of it that came out and wasted an hour with trying to update to the Creators Update, and it put me back to an unpatched anniversary update. So that was fun then, although, of course now that is not an issue whatsoever.
And now's actually a good time to thank Rico Scott for recognizing the analogy that you did not, Andy, about the plugs and wires and distributor cap and coils and stuff like that. Shout out to Rico for saying, "Hey, I got you, bud." So somebody knew what I was talking about. So I feel a little bit better.
Yeah. Okay, and additionally, if you are in the Windows Insider program in either the slow or release preview rings, you have had the Creators Update for a little while now, and now another patch is heading out to you if you're on one of those. And it isn't anything major, but it fixes an issue where non-suspendable processes in Windows would automatically suspend after waking a device. And that's a pretty big last-minute fix, but I mean, the official rollout's on the 11th, folks. So even if you join in now through the Update Assistant, you are a little early in there. It's fashionably early, I'd say. so there will be maybe a few issues, but they are working all of them out. And so far, as I upgraded, actually, after the podcast last week, I hopped into the release preview ring just to upgrade my main machine as fast as I could because I wanted to. And it has been smooth sailing. I've had almost no issues. Like, I've had a tiny little bug where I can't dismiss some notifications in the Action Center for whatever reason. Like, I'll have to wait 30 seconds, close, reopen the Action Center, and then I'll be able to dismiss them. Not sure why that's happening, but I'm pretty sure they'll work that out on day one whenever everything. Because, I left the Insider program because I didn't want to take a chance on ever getting any new build. I just said, all right, take me out on the next stable release, and that was kind of just instantly taking me out. So, yeah. But it's pretty smooth sailing. Aside from that, I haven't had any problems with it whatsoever, and I like it quite a bit. And speaking of that, actually, we got a couple other things in between this previous topic and that in the notes, but I just want to mention that I actually did a hands-on video of the Creators Update, which you can find on the site as well. We'll link to it in the notes here.
Fantastic. Andy, you did a great job on this.
Thank you.
Very, very good. A lot of views, a lot of thumbs up and everything. Go check this out. This is well worth it, folks.
Yeah, and if you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, I mean, it's pretty obvious. The title is just, Windows 10 Creators Update hands-on with the Windows 10 Creators Update. It's pretty obvious what it is. And it's a just under 6 minutes. I tried to keep it kind of compact. I didn't want to spread out into something that was 10, 15 minutes because I figured at that point people would lose interest, but I tried to hit the big notes there. I mean, there's some small stuff that isn't in there. I mean, I know I didn't talk about the new share window, little things like that, but I hit the high notes that you're going to care about the most likely. All right, and then 2 other Windows 10 stories, which I will hand over to Vernon. These are about a couple issues here with installing the Creators Update on certain devices.
Yeah, well, first of all, the Creators Update is not yet supported on Intel Atom Clover Trail processors. Now, you shouldn't. I don't want to tell you that you should not be using an Atom processor, but okay, I will. I'll tell you that you should not be using an Atom processor if you're listening to this. You could certainly buy a device with an Atom processor to give to your child or your family member who doesn't care if you're selfish that way, but don't put yourself through that self-torture of using an Atom processor. Now, that's a little bit exaggerated, and I mean, whatever. These devices exist and they work, but not very surprisingly, they're not supported yet, just because. Well, whatever. The old hardware, old weak hardware does not necessarily run.
From what I saw, they
new
had
stuff.
Certain display issues with them, and this seems to specifically be with the Clover Trail models.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they're working through that. I think there are 4 different chipsets or whatever, 4 different versions of that it won't specifically upgrade to yet. This is expected to some extent. There's backlash, but really people just whatever, get over it. If you're running something with an Atom processor, I think you can wait a little bit for the upgrade. Just saying.
Yeah, I actually didn't know how old the Clover Trail was, and so I look it up and I see an article from 2012 about it. So I think that does a good idea of just how old the hardware running it likely is. And it's talking about how it's going to be one of the biggest backbones supporting Windows 8, which sums it up pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Well, also here, the Mac users won't be able to install Windows 10 Creators Update with Boot Camp yet. So if you're, let's see here, you won't be able to clean install the Creators Update because, let's see here, how does this work? I don't know enough about this. I'm just reading from the article. The only way to get the Creators Update on a Mac is to download and install last year's anniversary update via Boot Camp, and then upgrade to the Creators Update from the anniversary update. I don't know why that is. Whatever. It just it's newsworthy as everyone is preparing to either upgrade early, or of course they will be upgrading soon enough. This will delay you a little bit. So All right, what do we got next
Alright,
here?
and then next up is actually another Vernon topic, which
Oh,
actually
yeah.
also one for me as well, I guess, because we have very different thoughts on this, and it's about the Cerulean Moment by Wharton Brooks.
Correct. Yeah. So let me frame this a little bit. We did talk about it last episode slightly, but let's go in the Wayback Machine a little bit. August of last year, Wharton Brooks was the parent company. They announced plans for their subsidiary, whatever, Cerulean Mobile, that they were going to bring a Windows 10 mobile device to market. They've not done this before, and so they didn't tell the name of it or anything. But that was in August. They just said it's coming. Soon after that, they began documenting their journey via podcast on SoundCloud. There's 4 episodes there. It is really interesting to hear all the little bits and pieces and the little roadblocks and barriers and things that they went through to fight through this. And also it kind of tells the story of why they're doing it. It's up to you to determine whether it's worth your time or money. But I think the story is really fantastic. It's very interesting. Last week, March 30th exactly, is when they announced their Indiegogo campaign. Now, the reason they did an Indiegogo campaign is because they did have an investor that backed out a bit ago. I should roll back before that, actually. They were going to announce at the end of 2016, they were going to have this device ready at the end of 2016. But they had some issues with the supply chain. And actually, I mean, going through an ODM in China is where most phones come from. And they actually had issues, like Microsoft had told them. Microsoft has been working with them. They told Wharton Brooks that you may have trouble with the ODMs during this holiday season, whatever the certain holiday season in China. And by their own admittance, they took it kind of for granted, like, oh yeah, we'll work through that. And really, it's a really big deal, apparently, where extra vacation or just things just kind of bogged down to a crawl, and that did delay them. Yeah, rookie mistake. That's fine. Well, they also had issues where they wanted to make sure the device would support Continuum, and it certainly did. It certainly still does. But after they got the initial device, they felt they needed to ramp it up and increase the specs. And so instead of just 2 gigs of RAM, they went to 3 gigs of RAM. Instead of the 16 gigabytes of storage required, they went with 32. I appreciate that. And so those are the devices that they got out. They have those devices in hand. And then once they got them, they were not as satisfied with the camera. And so and this I just learned today, which was a fantastic bit of information, actually, that the camera that they have that are on the devices they have right now is not the camera that they're going to get. It will still be a 13 megapixel shooter. I actually missed the name of the provider. I don't remember who that was. But there will be a rehash. The devices they have right now are not available for review, or they're not the true. Not all the kinks are worked out anyway. So last week, March 30th, they announced the Indiegogo campaign. They did that because they did not necessarily have all the funding that they expected, but it is still very, very feasible. Looking at the numbers so far, they have about 5 weeks left to go. And it's a little bit discouraging, basically thinking about how far they've gone into it. They need $1.1 million, which is about 4,000 devices, or 3,900, depending on where you split that there. And there's some moderate differences in the prices of the devices, and also you can obviously just contribute directly, which of course some people have been doing. There's almost 100 backers at this time, and a few less phones ordered than that. And it shows about 2% of the way there to their goal, about a week in. Well, doing the math on that, they're probably not going to reach it. But then again, the buzz around it, there's been some buzz in the core Windows Phone fan community. Andy, you've recognized this, I'm sure.
I've seen much less buzz and much more people making fun of it, to be honest with you.
Okay, and that's a fair assessment.
We are at completely different opposite ends of the side with this. I mean, I wish the company luck, and I hope they do well. I hope they, I mean, I hope everyone's able to live out their dream and whatnot. But I don't think that this is going to end well for them. I mean, I don't think that they're going to make that goal. I don't even think they'll make half of the goal, really. Because, as you say, there's some buzz in the core Windows Phone community that's left, but I don't believe that the core Windows Phone community that's left is enough to support this at all.
Well, perhaps. And yeah, at the rate of growth right now, rate of support, chances are it will not make it if that rate continues, and I think that's too bad.
Yeah, and especially with fundraisers like this, generally the rate of support drops off after a while, and so it'll just. I mean, it can be different for every single one, but I have a feeling that they are going to, if they don't have it already, they're going to have just about almost everybody who wants to contributing, and it's not going to leave them with much.
That's very possible, and I won't deny that. I think the core people that are excited for this or that are intrigued by it at least are the ones that want a successor to the HP Elite X3, for example. They want that kick-ass device.
Generally, if you're going to go with an HP Elite X3 successor, you don't go with a mid-ranger that's really just not necessarily a budget phone. I mean, it's mid-range, whereas success for the Elite X3, you'd have to have an incredibly high-end phone that would just blow away everything, which, of course, that was what Warren Brooks promised to begin with, not a device with only 3 gigs of RAM.
That's one other thing you touched on already, is that they jumped into this sharing relatively high expectations, or we were getting high expectations from them, the way that they marketed this, the way they hyped it up.
I have actually, and I think you might remember really that back when we talked about that, I had, even from the very first time, I had my doubts, and pretty much all of them were confirmed, sadly.
I really don't like some of the buzzwords that were used. I was skeptical right away from that point. But when the device was shown, and I am in no way saying that this device is a spec monster. Okay, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that this is a flagship. Okay,
I would say it's a collector's item personally.
Well, it's absolutely that. It is absolutely a collector's item. I really do hope I can get my hands on one of these, even just for that fact. But yeah, it could be considered old. It is based off of the co-ship Mali, which this does have better specs than that phone. I even heard Dan Rubino talk about it on recently, and he said that he really does like the feel of the co-ship Mali. He did not have the Cerulean Moment in hand, but that he liked the device itself, the feel of it, and that's there's value there. It is glass, and so it's
at the very least is nice, I guess.
Yeah, fingerprint magnet, whatever. That's not a big deal, I guess.
That kind of reminds me that I should that I really honestly love the design of the Alcatel Idol 4S just so much, like that phone, my sister actually has it now because of just the story's a bit too long to put on the podcast right now, but to sum it up, she really needed a smartphone. I had a spare smartphone, and so she's been the one using it mostly, but oh my goodness, I honestly just loved the design of that phone to death. I mean, I don't think words could do it justice, but that is probably my favorite phone I have ever held. It was just perfect in all regards, to me at least, because it was one where was a very glossy glass phone where I didn't feel like you needed a case. In fact, it was just almost perfect, with the exception of a camera bump. It was just about perfect without a case.
And that is nice to have a device that you did not need to put a case on. Personally, I would be...
Even if it was a glossy glass-backed device, it did better in my hand than my Galaxy, which I'd say that's a pretty good that is a pretty good achievement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One more thing that I noticed even just today about the Cerulean Moment, 6 or 7 days after it has been announced, is when they posted a second video demoing it, which actually shows, there's only like 400 views on this video, so it just came out yesterday. The publicity for it's very weak for this video. But this video does show streaming a video. The video shows the device streaming a video to a large display, and it looks like it's 1080p or something. And then also on the phone itself, Mr. Murphy, Greg Murphy, the CEO of this, is playing a graphical game. I didn't recognize which game it was, but I mean, 2 different joystick, virtual joysticks. And I after 2 or 3 minutes of both things happening, during that time I did see, I would say, 2 little stutters, and I think that was between a loading. It was loading between levels or something, and I was actually pretty impressed with that. Now, because people are giving a lot of crap for this, the Snapdragon 617 is the chip in there, processor. And because that's not 800 series, people obviously assume that it's junk. I'm not saying that it's not junk compared to the 835. Okay, I get that. I mean, but you have a $300 phone. I mean, how much does the chip itself how much does the Snapdragon 835 chip itself cost? I don't know, but you can see why they couldn't put that in a $300 phone. My main argument for this is that this is working, appears to be working fine with Continuum in several modes, and that this device may not be for you, but it is quite likely, it's possible that this device is for those people in your family who are satisfied with Windows Phone but may not be an enthusiast. And I think that's the big market that they're missing, because those people, my wife is a great example of this, she doesn't know this device exists. She doesn't know that she could get this for $300. She doesn't whatever. She doesn't like what she doesn't know exists yet. So I think in this case, it could be those Windows Mobile enthusiasts who would get this. And I saw a lot of comments like this actually on the blog post I put, which is obviously an opinion piece. I get that, people. Send me all the hate mail you want. But I am excited for this.
Didn't it have editorial in the name?
Yeah, exactly. Editorial. I mean, it was, I'm slanted on this, folks. I get that. This is not a flagship device. But it is a great, I think it appears to be a great $300 phone. And many people in the comments actually said, this is a great thing for me to test on. This is my second device. It's what I'm going to use for navigation. I'm going to load up all my music on it, play videos. 32 gigs of storage. You can put 4 full-size movies on that. Take that with when you go traveling, and just cast them, Continuum style to the motel TV, whatever. And I know many Windows Phone enthusiasts who, I don't know 3,900 Windows Phone enthusiasts personally, but I know many who find this very appealing as a second device. Well, I'm talking too much about this. I am excited for this. Now, logically, the chances at this rate are slim, and that's sad. But I think that it could work. Any other counterpoint to that, Andy? I mean, shoot down my hopes. I mean, what else do you see?
One thing I will say, let me see. Here, I will give a little counterpoint with a story that I'm trying to find where we have this one in the notes. I look away and it's all over the place. But oh geez, where did it go? It's like this article's okay. Here we go. Here's another big counterpoint. Spotify's Windows Phone app will no longer receive feature updates and shifts into a maintenance mode. And then continue on with the next story. Microsoft won't be bringing the Creators Update to the Lumia 930, 830, and older devices, and now there's just like a white list of devices that's going to get the Creators Update, which is very, very small. And let me see here.
That would tell me that I need to buy a new device.
Yeah, but this doesn't include the co-ship Molly, which I mean I know that device is a slightly upgraded one, like you said, but the thing about third-party Windows phones is that depending on the one it is, I mean, like some of them, like the HP Elite X3 and the Idol 4S, are obviously going to get updates, but boy, there are some recent Windows phones which are not going to get it. And this news comes from ZDNet and Mary Jo Foley, because a Microsoft spokesperson explained to her that certain devices will not be getting it. And excuse me here, I got a bit of a cough. But the full list of supported devices: Alcatel Idol 4S, Alcatel OneTouch Fierce XL, HP Elite X3, Lenovo SoftBank 503LV, MCJ Medosma Q601, the Lumia 550, Lumia 640 and 640 XL, Lumia 650, Lumia 950 and 950 XL, of course, the Trinity Nuance Neo, and the Vio VBB, the Vio Phone Biz, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. And that's it.
Well, there are a lot of further down the list. She also mentioned that this list may not be complete, but there is also, but I get it. We can assume that these are dropping off, such as the 1520, the 830. I mean, like the 930. I get it. These devices are like 3 years old, if not older.
And then there's ones from the past year that like let's see, when did the Acer release their Windows Phone? How long ago was that?
Over a year ago.
Yeah, but I don't believe it was. Let's see, yeah, they didn't even deliver the Windows 10 anniversary update to the Jade Primo.
Yep.
Primo.
The liquid Jade Primo. Yep.
Yeah, and to think, this was Acer. This was not a small company like Wharton Brooks. This was Acer, the PC manufacturer, saying, we're done. And so, yeah, that is just really, small companies and Windows 10 updates have not gone together well, from what I've seen, personally.
That's very valid, but I know that people that are running the Lumia 1520 with a release preview on it, and are still happy with it.
Yeah, and that it's a weird thing because the creators update runs perfectly fine on all the devices that have gotten support dropped.
It is interesting why they're dropping it, but it's also
it seems to be more of a step towards. I don't want to say step towards extinction. I think I have a moment like this every week now where I don't want to say Windows 10 Mobile is nearing its deathbed, but boy, it has not been looking good these past couple of weeks, because of course I don't believe Microsoft is going to give up on mobile. I mean, it's pretty much where you have to go to stay relevant now. I mean, there was a story we didn't put in the notes, but we are at a point where there are now more devices running Android than Windows. Android is now the most used operating system on the entire planet, and I can assure you that's not because of people running Android x86 on their PC. It's because we are now entering a world where everybody is going to have a phone, most people are going to have a smartphone, and not necessarily everybody is going to have a desktop PC or a reason to have a desktop PC or even a laptop. I mean, depending on your line of work, maybe work will give you a laptop, but you might not have a laptop for your own personal use.
So this is actually an argument for Samsung DeX and a strong argument for Windows Continuum, in my opinion.
It's a strong argument for Microsoft to get stuff together and do something in the mobile space that's actually going to work.
And I agree. They need to step it up. They need to make it more evident to people what they're trying to do. Share a roadmap. I mean, like we talked about it last episode, or maybe the one before, how Scorpio was teased early and why that was. But we need, at Build, we need Terry Myerson or somebody to say, we are now excited about mobile again, or something.
Or the opposite.
Or the opposite. You're right. They need to say, screw it. I mean, they need to do something with it. But I'm feeling I'm feeling more strongly lately. I'm seeing reading the tea leaves or writing on the wall or whatever, that, I mean, we know this is going to happen, but that Windows on ARM is going to play a much bigger role in the next couple years and going forward. And remember,
For sure.
remember
I'm
that
I'm s-
they
I'm
use
not
the
even gonna
term
pretend.
they use the term continuum for phone because there may be there's continuum without phone,
And
with something
I
else.
can't. They are still doing some continuum improvements internally, or at the very least they did. Not everything showed up in Windows 10 Mobile, but like I mean, they had those presentations where they actually showed multi-window continuum and like. So I want to believe that they're going to do something alongside Windows on ARM that will produce some more quality devices that are maybe just little dedicated continuum boxes. Who knows? But there's so much stuff that could just go somewhere, and I'm not 100% sure about anything. In fact, I'm not even 50% sure on where this stuff is going to go. But where I do feel the most sure is when I say Windows. We are going to have a jump that is going to be like the jump from Windows Phone 7 to Windows Phone 8. That is, of course, Windows Phone 7 devices didn't get Windows Phone 8. I mean, it was just impossible. That's going to be this.
Literally impossible.
Yeah, I mean, same thing as I'm pretty sure that it was impossible to bring Windows Phone 7 to previous Windows mobile devices.
Correct. There was Windows Phone 7 was by itself, but
Yeah,
going from 8 to 10 was a challenge and not necessarily supported, but that was that happened. That has happened.
yeah, and so I will say that really I think that we're going to go into a situation where it's going to be another jump.
Well, because
And
of ARM chips, basically.
not necessarily Windows on ARM. Like I said, they are still doing continuum improvements. So, like, I'm not 100% sure. We'll find out what Microsoft is doing eventually, hopefully. But there's it's a mess.
See,
I'm not going to put it any other way.
I get
It is a total mess of okay, they're doing this, they're doing that, and we got tiny bits of snippets of stuff. It's like someone ran 5 different plans Microsoft has through a shredder and threw them out into the news. That's the way it feels looking over this.
Absolutely, it really does. It's frustrating and sad, a little bit infuriating. Like all this is, it's like, oh, come on.
Well, yeah,
I
I mean
do.
Microsoft is a company that I do like, but it's really also a company that I want to like a lot more than I can, because it's not a case of for every step forward you have two back. I mean they're taking plenty of steps forward. Look at Office, look at look at Windows on the desktop. Windows on the desktop is getting better and better with every update, and I'd say that it's doing fantastic. Not necessarily the universal Windows platform, because with mobile currently in this state of limbo, I'm not sure where that's going to head. Maybe I do feel like they're going to have more of a focus on tablets and phones, and because this was a subject we touched on before, but a tablet user interface scales better to a desktop user interface than a phone interface scales to a desktop interface.
But that's the whole reason that they did UWP, is so that it would just it shouldn't be a problem. To wrap this up, I do feel strongly that this is. I feel that Microsoft. I feel that they might. I think if they come out with let's just call it Surface Phone, okay? I feel like maybe they have this thing that's coming out that they think is actually going to be incredibly awesome, and that by dropping support for older devices, that's going to push people to buy this new thing. If that's the case, it's just a few hundreds of thousands of people that are going to be able to go do that. I think they're thinking too big picture here, or too big a scale.
I don't think they're dropping support for devices because of necessarily so that they can get them to move on to the next big thing when there is no sign that Microsoft's going to release a next big thing anytime soon. If anything, I'd say there's the cost of support outweighing the use. I mean, that's just a potential thing.
That's possible, but they don't want someone going to somewhere else, because if I move to Android, then I'm going to be using Google's, more likely to use Google Search, maybe Google Drive.
Not necessarily.
I know.
Microsoft's support on Android is so fantastic that I use almost all Microsoft services on my Android phone, so
I know that. I realize that. But
I
I'm
mean
saying
that's
that
and
if
their focus is more right now on having the Microsoft name on every billboard they can, as opposed to making it so that you go specifically to a Microsoft platform.
well,
So I don't
those
think that's it.
phones are billboards. They're very personal billboards. And if they can get those devices, well, whatever. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's too late, but I don't know. They
And of
need
course,
to
the other
have
point
a mobile. They need to be in the mobile space. They need to be
they
known
do
as
they
being in
do
the
for
mobile
sure,
space.
but I don't believe they even currently are. And
No, not
also,
really.
as another point to people dropping off Windows 10 Mobile or Windows Phone 8.1 or whatever for another device, the counterpoint to all that is, all right, Microsoft has, let's just say that I snap my fingers, Microsoft has lost every single Windows 10 Mobile or Windows Phone 8.1 user. They've all moved to iOS or Android. How much does the company change?
Well,
I
Cortana
mean,
use will drop. Uh,
well, not necessarily. I mean, Cortana usage on the Xbox One and Windows 10 desktop is honestly pretty great. I mean, maybe it'll have a bit of a drop, yeah, but
but I think deep use. I mean, I think technically it exists on a desktop, and that counts as a check mark. Um, I
I mean,
don't.
the
I
check
th- I think
it was
I
the
think it's the mind
Cortana on the
share.
desktop was Cortana on the desktop was so big that like Bing search after the Windows 10 release just like skyrocketed and it's
Yeah,
still heading up. So like
I
honestly,
think what they'd be losing.
I hate to say it, but if they lost every single Windows 10 mobile user to iOS or Android, I don't believe much would change because all those users would still likely be using another Microsoft service. They would either be using Microsoft services on Android, or of course, they are likely running Windows 10 on their PC, be it a desktop tower, a laptop, or a two-in-one. Because if it is a PC, odds are like 90% chance that it's going to be running Windows. Because Mac still hasn't gotten much of a foothold. In fact, uh, Apple had a press conference the other day to basically say, whoops, we kind of messed up with the Mac Pro. We're going to have to work on a device that's actually good. And it's kind of like and they are kind of in a situation where Microsoft is. Like, Apple's Mac Pro isn't doing very well because it's an old design. They've gone years without updating the Mac Pro, which has been longer than Microsoft has gone without updating a Windows phone, for the record. The Lumia 950 was 2 years ago, around there.
About a year and a half.
Okay, that's a bit closer, yeah. So they had double the time than Microsoft to not update a device, but they held a press conference to say, okay, we screwed up. We're going to work on something. We can't say much about it, but we're going to try harder this time. So hang in there, guys. Microsoft.
That's really surprising because that almost feels like they're saying that's like an admission of guilt. That's really surprising.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
know. That
really,
surprised me.
it's it's surprising to me too, but I kind of feel as if that's similar to what Microsoft should do. It should just give a flat out update on what's happening and say, okay, we kind of messed up here. There's a lot of stuff we could have done better, guys. So here's what we're gonna do. I don't think that's gonna happen though.
I agree
What
that
we're gonna have,
they definitely need to do that. They need to say something about it. Back to your question, Andy, about what they're going to lose. What they're going to lose if there is no Windows mobile device available. Okay, if Windows
not
10 mobile
necessarily
goes
available.
away.
I'm saying that if just right now, if every single person using a Windows phone stopped, and that Microsoft is in this scenario, Microsoft is still free to release a new Windows device, a Windows mobile device, in whatever way it is, be it Surface Phone or whatever, and people are free to buy that. But say they start from square one all over again, and just right now, how does the company change with not a single Windows Phone in use? And I don't believe it's that much.
What's going to change is they'll lose those diehard fans. And you say that people could still use stuff on other operating systems. I mean, I obviously, but they're going to lose the diehard fans. They're going to lose the mind share, and I think it's already shifting, the positivity that Windows Phone has always had. I mean, this is undeniable from people that many people have said that the community of Windows Phone and Windows Mobile has been so positive. If that goes away, it's
I think I believe
it's
they could
different.
regain. I think they could regain the positivity if they are able to show that they are able to commit to a new device, and maybe it'll take a year or two, but they could definitely go back to where they used to be. They could. I think they could, if just in some situation, if they hit every single note correctly, they could head in the right direction.
See, that's an interesting thought, Andy. So what do you think those notes would be? What do you think they would? What would make you want to buy a Microsoft, a Windows 10 mobile device?
Well, first off, you're going to need a very fluid user interface, which is a thing that really, during my time with using Windows 10 mobile, there was so many things that were just not fluid. And this was before a lot of the return of pivots happened, but like, for example, just as an example, and Twitter's a third-party app, but just as a general example, on Android, on Twitter, it's a third-party app, but still, stay with me here, because this applies to other areas of the operating system as well. On Android, I'm able to swipe between each section with no issues. On Windows 10 Mobile, I had to go to each different section and tap the icon for it. Maybe that's been changed since, I'm not 100% sure, but...
So that isn't...
Regardless,
that isn't the operating system.
Well, I mean, it's just a general example of what I'm talking about here.
Okay.
Where it just felt like apps, both first party and third party, weren't feeling very fluid. And then you go to Cortana, and I went to swipe to get the hamburger menu open. That was not a thing that happened.
That pisses me off. That really bothers
me.
Yeah.
And not being able to swipe to open hamburger menus is like the biggest thing ever.
Well, they shouldn't exist anyway, but yeah.
What it made me realize was that my usage of Android was very rarely tapping things and mostly swiping.
Which is exactly how Windows Phone was in 2010.
Exactly. Windows Phone 8.1 is honestly my idea of a perfect operating system. It was just so good. Everything had a flow to it. I think if they recaptured that flow, which existed in, of course, both first-party and third-party apps, and pretty sure just about every single one of them, maybe there's a couple exceptions, but the majority of Windows Phone apps were fluid. They had a smooth flow to them, and it went very, very, very well. I think that would be first note they'd have to hit. They would have to have it, and they could probably hold that above iOS, because iOS feels a little clunky to me at the moment.
iOS is very stabby. You gotta stab in and out of apps. I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm not very big on it personally. I think there's some areas they get right, but it's probably one of my least favorites.
So what kind of hardware would pull you to Windows 10 Mobile?
All right, hardware. Boy, it's kind of hard for me to describe phone hardware that would drive me in, because it's a case where I think I have to see it before I go about it, because I'm not a phone designer, but I guess really I want a high quality camera, which Windows phones were known for years, specifically the Lumia line. Let's see. Well, if they wanted to stand out a bit, I do think a dedicated camera button like the Alcatel Idol 4S has would also be good.
Absolutely.
You need a good camera, a dedicated camera button. It doesn't have to necessarily be a thin phone. I don't need a thin phone as much as I need a phone that will stay in my hands well. They need a phone just all around have a good. I mean, good specs are a given, but they also need to push some features with those good specs. They need to innovate in an area, and that will get the media attention, and of course media attention leads to sales sometimes, and I think they could pull that off. They would also, of course, for the most part that the mysterious app gap from years past is gone, although it would be best if they got some, they would need to change up some things with UWP, of course. They would need things to be more fluid, but I think they could pull it off. I mean, there's more changes than we have time to discuss, and my cold medicine's wearing off anyways. So,
what I would say that they would need to do is put out 3 devices per year for the next 2 years, with flagship, mid-range, and entry level, whatever. Mid-range would be they would need to push that for enterprise. All 3, or at least the top 2, would need to have Continuum run well. And they would need to be unique, but not nutty.
Just interject. I would say that all of them have to have Continuum at the very least. Not necessarily run Continuum, not necessarily run it well, but just to have it. because they would need that to set the operating system apart.
Now, those next 2 years would only be maybe regaining the hardcore fans, bringing people back to Windows Phone. Now, this is all. This is a dream, okay, people. I'm not trying to go nuts
we're all
here.
full theoretical situation here.
But it would take at least 2 years just to bring some people back to it that were huge fans of it to begin with. And then from there, they could really start pushing, actually marketing, advertising, coming up with whatever they. Well, at that point, I don't know, but it would need to be trually unique. The devices don't have to be unique yet. They need to be unique in 2 years.
By the way, just interjecting again. Well, they would need a tinge of uniqueness at the very least to set them apart at the start. But then from there on, they would need to focus on continuing to support those devices over those 2 years, show that they were going to support those devices, and prove that, these devices are here to stay. If you buy this phone in a couple of years, you'll still be able to use it fine. You'll be able to get some updates still. It's going to be, standard phone update cycle. And we're gonna keep pushing out new features to it throughout this time. You're gonna be able to take advantage of so much good stuff. The lower end device might not last as long as a higher end one, of course, because maybe these updates are gonna use a little more horsepower than the previous version of the operating system did. But you can keep on using it. It's gonna work out well, and basically how things were.
I don't know. I don't think they need to have crazy hardware yet. I think they need to have good, solid, fluid OS, and then bring people in with really mind-blowing hardware after they have the core.
Maybe not mind-blowing is what they needed to start, but like I said, they do need something to set them apart, be it on the operating system or the hardware itself. And a focus on the camera would be really good. That's a good place to start.
Well,
like I said,
okay.
Camera button, good
camera.
camera.
I don't want to we're talking plenty about this, but I think at this point it's fairly safe to say that we're starting to plateau on cameras. Okay, now in many times in tech we think, oh, this is as good as it's going to get, and I recognize that they always think it can still get better, but no one's complaining about cameras anymore, right? There were crappy cameras a couple years ago. There's not many crappy cameras anymore, and so I
don't think it's necessarily a matter of being crappy. I feel like as I look at the Galaxy S7 is considered the best camera on the market, and I still have there's still much to be desired with it. I feel, just really, I think that there's so much that they could do better. I think there's still plenty of room in the camera space to get better. I mean, it's not as bad as it was. I mean, it's good even, but I think there's enough room to turn that good into a great.
I've honestly not been dissatisfied with a Windows Phone camera in a very long time. I mean, the Titan 2, I was impressed with those cameras.
It's not necessarily dissatisfied as much as it is I could be more satisfied, I guess. I mean, I guess I'm getting a little greedy here, but you get the idea. I feel as if there's still room for improvement in many spaces, and cameras were definitely one of them.
Just aside from the speed, the 950 doesn't quite have the speed that I would like. But I mean, anyway, we got to move.
We can move on. We're gonna have I guess this is a bit of this might end up as a longer podcast than usual, which sorry to Vernon at the very least, but I think this is kind of a format that works, with the exception of maybe time.
Well, let me put this in here, folks. If this bothers you, if you don't give two hoots about Windows Phone or Windows Mobile, you should actually tell us. Okay? Obviously, I love it. Obviously, Andy likes debating me on it, and that's okay.
Well, I like Windows. I like Windows Phone. I just feel as if it would take a lot of work to get it back to where it used to be, but I do think it's doable. Yeah, which is the important part.
We don't want to overwhelm the show with Windows 10 mobile stuff, but I think that most Windows Microsoft fans, the hardcore ones, are actually still using a Windows Phone, even if, well, I mean, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, let us know either way. You gotta email us, folks. Let us know how things are, what you think of it, and hit us up on Twitter and all that stuff too.
Yeah.
What's next, Andy?
All right. So next stuff. Boy, we're at 50 minutes now, so I'll crack my knuckles, get going here. Microsoft is bringing the hammer down on emulators in the Windows Store. For those who aren't familiar, Emulator, I mean, for the specific usage of the term here, it's referring to emulation of video game systems. And the way this is done, it involves a lot of stuff that I have no knowledge of because just even thinking of making an emulator is so insane that it makes my head hurt. But to put it simply, you would download an emulator, you would download the files for the game, and then you would load up those files of the game in the emulator, and bada boom, you've got your classic Game Boy games running on Windows 10. And this is honest. I'm going to be honest here. Emulators are fantastic. I fully support them. I think that, maybe there's some moral gray areas when it comes to emulating more recent systems, but if you want to play a game from 20 years ago where it's no longer being sold, not even remade for a new system or whatever, and the company behind it's closed down or whatever, listen, I have no issue with that. So, and it's a good way to experience stuff on from old systems on a screen that doesn't hurt your eyes to look at. Just it is a positive gain for a lot of people, but regardless, there's a lot of issues here with them, and most of them are legal gray areas, as well as companies that don't want to have emulators for their systems out there. And having emulators on a game console is more than a gray area, it is a no-go zone. Microsoft disallowed the NESbox emulator, which emulates various Nintendo systems as well as some Sega systems if memory serves. They disallowed it from coming out on the Xbox One. Now, the Xbox One does support UWP apps, but any UWP app that was a game would have to go through the ID at Xbox program, and emulators can't go through ID at Xbox because, well, they aren't necessarily games. They're programs that run games that were not made by the developer of the emulator. And that was honestly a ban by another name. Just flat out there. Your emulator's not ending up on the Xbox One, etc., etc. Well, now emulators are completely banned from any Windows 10 device family at all in the Windows Store. You are not going to be the NESbox emulator and a lot of others, including VBA 10, which if memory serves, that emulated the Game Boy Advance. That has all been delisted from the store. Users who have the devices installed on their device will not be able to reinstall it, but they are able to continue running it as long as they keep it installed. If you uninstall that app, it's gone for good. But if you keep it there, that's it, And this is a big change, and boy, it's just basically carpet bombing that section of the store. There are still some emulators left that are Windows 8 era apps, and I don't know if they'll still be around for after a while. I mean, maybe they'll just stick around as legacy applications or whatever, but for the most part, emulators are gone from the Windows Store, and they are never returning. My thoughts for the reason of this probably has to do with unifying rules across platforms. Because really, if an application is all but banned from the Xbox One, there's no way you're going to get an official release of this app on the Xbox One. Why is it allowed on Windows 10 desktop when that app is, of course, it's still the same store. It's still technically able to run on all the other devices. So why ban it from just one and have that inconsistent rule there between platforms? Especially as Microsoft is looking to merge the Xbox One and Windows platforms through stuff like, for example, Xbox Play Anywhere, which your digital purchases on one platform count for another, etc., etc. It's still the same Microsoft ecosystem, so why do the rules keep changing on different platforms?
I think I might kind of have an answer. On the PC, we are very used to running things in a renegade manner sometimes. When people want to dig in.
They are different platforms, but I mean, like for the Windows Store ecosystem specifically, the platforms are completely different. There is no denying that. But for the Windows Store ecosystem is the specific thing here, because Microsoft, the way I see it, Microsoft wants to position the Windows Store against Steam. They want to have higher, and I think one of the ways that they can do that is with higher quality control than Steam, because Steam's quality control is essentially if you throw it in a dumpster, and then that dumpster ends up at Valve's doorstep in Bellevue, they will put it on Steam. But the Windows Store, I think one of the ways they can do that is quality control. And the Xbox Store has pretty good quality control. I'm not going to lie about that. there are very few things on there that I've looked at and thought, okay, this is pretty crap. I mean, maybe I wouldn't like the game, or maybe I wouldn't find it up to my personal quality standards, but like, there is a term called shovelware, which is essentially stuff that is just shoveled out the door, pushed out as fast as it can, could get a quick buck. I don't see that stuff on the Xbox Store. And Microsoft is pretty much merging the Xbox One store and the Windows Store as they focus on UWP games, Xbox Play Anywhere. They're going to have that same level of quality control between those, and I think we're going to see more and more rules on games in the Windows Store, and maybe even apps as well, as we move in to that era. Stuff like, the Xbox Live Creators Program, which will let you publish games to Xbox One and Windows 10 simultaneously and quickly without too much hassle, even if they will be confined to their own section of the store. And oh my goodness, I've gone on for a big spiel there, but basically the two platforms are coming together, so the rules from one are going to apply to the other, and the Xbox One has the one with the stricter quality control rules, which also ties into Microsoft putting the Windows Store against Steam, because saying that we have quality control and you don't is a very good selling point for consumers, I think. Okay, that was like a solid 3 minutes or something.
Are you still on that emulator one?
Yeah, yep.
All right. Well,
it wasn't necessarily emulators.
All right. I'll start this one off.
My lungs are dead, so okay. Yeah, you can do that.
All right. So Project Scorpio. We've been hearing about this for a long time. Specifications, specs are finally revealed. Man, it looks pretty good. At least Twitter was pretty happy today. I guess I can run down the specs here because poor Andy has no voice left. Let's see, where's subpage here. All right. So the CPU is going to be 8 custom x86 cores clocked at 2.3 gigahertz. The GPU itself is going to be 40 customized compute units at 1172 megahertz. Okay. The speed itself will be 6 teraflops. The RAM 12 gig DDR5. As far as the memory bandwidth, they were at 326 gigabytes per second, or gigabytes per second, I should say. And the hard drive 1 terabyte, 2.5 inch. Of course, that's a disk drive. And of course, it will have not external, I guess, two different disk drives, one being the hard drive and the other one being the optical drive, which will support 4K ultra high definition Blu-ray. Sounds pretty good. People are pretty happy about it. I recognize these numbers are bigger than other numbers. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
And I've seen some pretty good graphs that show how it's still kicking the PlayStation 4 Pros butt pretty good. And that's good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a good thing because the Scorpio basically takes the Xbox One's second place and shoves it all the way to the forefront. More than the forefront, it's far above the PS4 Pro there. And I don't think it's an area where Sony can catch up because the PS4 Pro was really their special edition PlayStation 4 that was meant to have higher fidelity graphics. The Scorpio is meant to be the Xbox One with higher fidelity graphics, and it's light years ahead. And it's too soon for Sony to put out another Pro, like a Pro 2 or whatever, because all of a sudden then you have a third console in the ecosystem where that developers are going to have to work on. People who bought the Pro are going to feel burned. And just, Microsoft does have Sony backed into a corner in this area. The only possible concern, really, is with the library of games, which I do hope that they impress people at E3 this year. The way that my Twitter timeline was pretty split. Just about everybody agreed, yeah, the hardware is great, but the doubts came in with, okay, what about the game library? And the way a friend of mine put it, which he said this months ago, but I think it's still true, where he said, and keep in mind, this is someone who owns both an Xbox One and PlayStation 4. This guy I don't think this guy's too biased towards either one. So, and he's a reasonable guy. And so he says that Microsoft is pretty committed to beating Sony in just about every single area except for a library of exclusive games. And of course, the Xbox One does have exclusive games, but they aren't coming out at the same rate. I mean, Sony's got one, just like at least one every single month. Whereas with Microsoft, their big exclusive releases are months apart. It's a much slower release cycle, and they are quality games, but it's just not as much, and that creates this appearance of the PS4 being the only platform with exclusives, etc., etc., etc. There's a lot more to talk about in that area than we have time for, but basically, Microsoft has just about everything nailed with the exception of all the library stuff so far, and I really do hope that at E3 this year they really manage to blow people away with what they've got in store. Personally, I'm expecting stuff like a new Forza, which should be good. I mean, although Forza is a given, Microsoft's big trio for the Xbox One seems to be Gears of War, Halo, and Forza, and I do hope that they expand past that and move on with some more stuff, as maybe we'll hopefully finally see some more Crackdown 3 information come out of E3. And that's just speculation there. Maybe we'll... And, of course, State of Decay 2 was a third... Well, maybe it seemed more like second party than anything. Title that should be good, etc., etc. But to basically sum it up, E3... We've got just about every single piece of the puzzle down, except for library editions, which I believe should show up at E3, and I really hope that they are ones that impress. Okay, finish it up. More Scorpio information is that it will substantially improve existing Xbox One and backward compatible games through various ways. And let's see, it helps existing Xbox One games run smoother due to increased frame rate, which is kind of a given. It eliminates frame rate and screen tearing issues for backward compatible games like Bayonetta.
I can just read this, Andy, if you're dying.
No. Yeah. No, I'm not that dead yet.
Okay.
I'm at like 50% dead. So it's once I hit 90%, I'll get to be worried and maybe start writing my will. But for now, I'm fine. And which the Xbox One already runs certain backward compatible games far better than the Xbox 360, of course. Like Halo Reach, for example, has no frame drops on the Xbox One, as opposed to the Xbox 360 original version. During firefights, you will see a drop in frames, etc., which is kind of funny because Reach had horrible performance on the Xbox One until they patched that, which really glad they did because Halo Reach is real good. Games that support dynamic resolution like Halo 5 and The Witcher 3 will be locked at their maximum resolution, which is also kind of a given because the way the dynamic resolution system works is that if the game enters a area where the frame rate is going to drop at all, the resolution will be lowered, and that counters it. Like, for example, let's say in Halo 5, you are at a small little room. You're in a room that is just confined little box. I mean, there's some areas in the game that are close enough to that, I guess, but in a small area, the game is going to be rendering at a full 1080p right there. Once you move out into a big open area where maybe it's this big grassy plain where all that grass is going to start hogging up little bits of memory there, that's when the resolution starts to drop a bit. Maybe it won't be noticeable unless you look for it, but there's some areas where it'll be more noticeable than others. And so that's just an example there, but that'll be obviously locked to maximum resolution because the frame rate isn't going to drop on hardware this powerful. Existing Xbox One games will load faster due to unprecedented jump in memory bandwidth, and that will also result in better texture filtering. And then they also said that a tech demo of Forza Motorsport 6 is already running at 4K 60 FPS without much optimization. And then also, as reported earlier, provides 4K 60 FPS gameplay capture to help out with YouTube content creators. That's good because the current game capture is limited to 720p 30 FPS. Even if your game is running at 1080p 60 right now, game capture won't get it on the current Xbox One. And in order to take into account the heat challenges of that much power, they have designed a state-of-the-art cooling system, and also said that the form factor of Scorpio will surprise everyone. And finally, 4K performance could pose a challenge to graphics cards like new NVIDIA models. Okay, there we go. That's about it. And also as a final note, Civilization Revolution and Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet have headed to backward compatibility. Both of those are neat. Civilization is cool. Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet is a game with a neat name that I heard about on G4 back when that was a thing, and I missed that channel.
Cool. All right. Thanks for listening, folks. We appreciate it. You can follow us on Twitter at MSPoweruser. You can follow us individually. If you really want to follow Andy, he's back on Twitter. He's there at
like I said, I've lost the battle, but not the war.
He's at FusionFan45. I am on Twitter at VernonEL. Make sure you subscribe to the show. Like and rate and all that kind of stuff if you really want to. Email us if we piss you off because we talk about stuff for too long. Let us know.
I have not been hitting my death threat quota in emails lately.
Yeah, step it up, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I flat out asked people to send me death threats, and the only thing I got was a press release for Farming Simulator, which, I mean, it was close enough, I guess.
All right, let's wrap it up. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great week and take care, all right?
Later.